live from the basement of the basement. I don't know why they keep putting us in this double basement, Marver.
Oh.
This is the Sports Cubicle, where the inmates run the asylum and our bosses, well, they're going to yell at us tomorrow morning because we're working overtime. This is the fastest hour of sports talk radio and the latest hour of sports talk radio, so thank you for spending it with us. But let's get to our esteemed panel. He's over there. And I think, did you watch the full Bears game, Marver?
Yeah, I watched most of it, but I'm worried about the rain tonight with our sub basement here. Is this waterproof down here? I watched the game. I watched the first half. Then at halftime, I switched over to Wedding Crashers because it always gets me when Owen Wilson gets the girl at the end in Vince Vaughn's wedding. I just couldn't miss that.
At this point, I was hoping the Bears would have gotten a touchdown. You know?
No, well, they didn't. And we did learn one thing today. We know that Tom Brady's backup is Blaine Gabbert. And by the way, I saw Blaine Gabbert's brother play in person yesterday. As a bit of trivia, he's the starting quarterback from Miami University.
And Blaine Gabbert has a Super Bowl ring. Let's just remember that. And he's over there on his couch. I don't know if he watched the entire Bears game. He's Mike Mercado. What's up, Mercado?
What's up, boys? Yes, I watched the entire game. I didn't get a chance to take an afternoon nap because I was just dreading what Tom Brady was going and did to this Bears defense. What's up, Chicago? At the very least, we have a 3-0 basketball team.
Yeah, we'll get into that much later, but we got to talk about the Bears. And as you heard in the intro song, I put that little clip in. Just stop. He's already dead, and that's what I felt like watching this Bears game. It's like, Tom, Tampa, just stop. The Bears are already dead. This game is over. Jeez. And just it was, this game especially to me, I felt like this pointed out all of the Bears' flaws that they need to work on. This defense is absolute garbage. This offensive line is garbage. Justin Fields has a few things he needs to work on. And I don't know about you guys, but somebody needs to get fired tomorrow morning.
Who goes first?
That's a good question, Marver. Who would you fire? Well, Marver, I'm sorry, Coach Dan Marver. I mean, Coach Matt Nagy. What's our solution? How do we fix this?
Well, we're going to watch the film, and we're going to make the corrections, and I'll see you next week, and I'll say the same thing.
Very good. Paul, do you think someone should get fired tomorrow morning?
I think Matt Nagy should get fired. I think this reflects poorly on him. Fields has had a few weeks to really try and figure it out. He looked lost today. Some of the things that he was trying to do, the extracurriculars were just awful. Just underthrown passes, underthrowing receivers, throwing behind receivers. I know he doesn't have a great offensive line. I know he's scrambling. He's learning on the fly. But I think Matt Nagy has not prepared him at all and put him in the best position to win. And I think it reflects poorly on the coach.
Yeah, and again, this is, we have a young quarterback that we need to develop. And what have I been saying every week? Let Fields be Fields. And I don't see Matt Nagy letting that. He wants to turn this into a Matt Nagy quarterback. He wants this to be Nick Foles or Mitch Trubisky or Andy Dalton, his supposed guys. You can't do that with Fields. And here's the thing. Paul and I talked about this earlier. Paul said, if the Bears finish this season, 6-11, and they keep Matt Nagy next year, what's going to change?
Nothing changes on this
Mercado.
team. But this is the problem: is there's so much that you could go around for this team. Let's keep it 100% on this game. The Bears weren't going to beat Tampa Bay. This was a Tampa Bay team that is going on all cylinders. And on top of it, now this Bears team, not just on injuries, but COVID has kind of ravaged this team on so many different levels. Just an idea of how this game started. You win the coin toss, right? But instead of deferring the ball because, you don't want to get your offense in a bad spot to start the game, what do? You choose to receive. Then you give up a sack. You go 3 and out. Give up a long punt return. Commits a pass interference, allow a long run, which you were doing the entire game. You give up a touchdown. You're down 7-0 in the first 3 minutes of the game, and they never looked back. And not just that, this team is undisciplined. We talk about undisciplined. Paulie just did about how the offense was playing balls behind or too short or over the head. How about Bilal Nichols throwing a punch late in the game? And at that moment, you saw Tom Brady look at that Bears team with that quick out that they did to Mike Evans. They were going to score. Why? Because that was stupid football. And that's what this team does on so many different levels. Yeah, you know what? We all can agree. Justin Fields did not play a good game. What is that? What are they supposed to do? And you talk about coaching just now. with Khalil Herbert and Justin Fields out there, and one of the first series of the game, you see that safety come on in the blitz, and nobody accounted for him. Why? Because you have two rookies out there and a quarterback that hasn't coached them up. That is the biggest problem on this team, and I'll go back to it over and over again. This is the same front office that went up in the second round to draft a lineman that played right tackle to play left tackle that has a bad back that probably won't play this season. That is what this front office did. And all this money that's on this team, every value of assets that's been put on a monetary level is on the defense, not on the offensive line, not on the wide receivers, not on the running backs, and sure as hell not on the quarterback. It is all on that defense that didn't make plays. And they can only do so much when you're only scoring 3 points in a game. In 2 weeks, you have been embarrassed by Aaron Rodgers and by Tom Brady. And I just don't put that on the defense. I just don't put that on the inept offense. I put that squarely on ownership, on Ryan Pace, and Matt Nagy.
Well, Herbert got 100 yards rushing. He was the first guy to do it against Tampa. So let's look at the positive. But on the other hand, I mean, Rodgers and Brady will be in the Hall of Fame. So let's say, maybe we shouldn't fire everybody because maybe that's extreme. But San Francisco comes up next week. This is in the past. Hopefully they can look at the film and make the corrections.
But we're going to see Khalil Herbert in the Hall of Fame, Marver. I don't think so.
Brady and Rodgers.
This is not a Hall of Fame team.
This isn't a good team.
Thank you. It's spot on. This is not a good team. And of course, we got a good old Ryan Pace who traded away our first round draft pick next year. So it's like, even if we tank, it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. But right now, as I've been saying, this is the year you need to learn. You need to have Fields just take the reign. And I'm really glad they kept him in the entire game and didn't throw Andy Dalton or Nick Foles and like, here, it's over. Just throw the ball wherever you want to go.
But you mentioned Dalton and Foles, and what was the point of bringing in both of those guys if you were going to go out and get Justin Fields? And I know that you got those guys before you got Justin Fields, but all of that money tied up in those guys, and as well as all the money that you got tied up in Khalil Mack,
Jimmy Graham,
put into the offensive line.
And I talked about that, and they tried trading Foles for a draft pick. Nobody wants Nick Foles in that big old contract that I was against from the start. We all know they got Andy Dalton because they panicked when Pete Carroll said we're not getting rid of Russell Wilson. But again, why are we spending I'm with you, Paul. Why are they spending all this money? And I agree. I've been saying I got that Fire Everyone t-shirt. I think Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy need to go. I was at the grocery store today. I saw so many of that Mitch Trubisky, like that Trubisky-Nagy 2018 t-shirts they sold. It's like, boy, that did not age well.
Well, Devin,
and it's just gotten... Yes, Mercado?
Well, it's funny because you're saying this about how ugly it's getting and how bad it's getting. I just saw this from Adam Hogue on Twitter, all right? And Justin Fields was on having his press conference. And listen to this. On the first interception, Justin Fields quick snapped the ball because they told him in his headset the Bucs had 12 players on the field. He thought it was a free play. Second week in a row, that has happened. This is lack of leadership and communication from the highest level in the field. We're talking about how bad it got, how we blamed Mitch Trubisky, how we thought that it was him that was the bust. Yeah, it was very unfair just on the idea of Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson being picked after him. But we've seen it now that they are not putting these guys in places to succeed. And you talk about, Paulie just did, and Devin, you kind of jumped on it of where is this money going? Jimmy Graham is on the COVID list. Where are the people who are getting paid in this money? Where are the dollars being allocated across this entire franchise? And none of the guys are stepping up. I saw Chris Godwin do whatever he wants out there. Mike Evans do whatever he wants out there. And Eddie Jackson's still getting paid. Like, this is the problem with the team. I could blame the players all I want. It's one thing. I'm not going to bash a dude that's going out there playing 100 miles an hour. It's the scouting, and it is the team that has put these contracts together. And here's the thing that nobody's talking about. This is going to come back and bite this team because all this money that they're pushing back, deferring year to year, restructuring contracts because they think for some reason they have a Super Bowl window right now. Just wait, because when they need to get some offensive power for their young quarterback, they're going to have no resources for it.
I guess if this isn't the breaking point to fire the coach, what would be the breaking point this year? I mean, is it going to be a bad game against San Francisco? Is it going to be a month from now? What if this team ends up keeping Coach Nagy after the season and wants to bring him back for 2022? I mean, I think the writing's on the wall that this guy's not going to be coaching this team next season.
In all fairness, with this personnel, what coach would you pick, and how much improvement would you expect from such a coach? That's the problem, in my
and
opinion.
that brings up the question, because usually the pendulum swings one way or the other. You know, you went the offensive coach in Mark Trestman, that didn't work out. You go to the defensive coach in John Fox, and you go back to the offensive coach, Matt Nagy. Does this team need a defensive coach?
I don't
think so.
No, I don't. I think this franchise needs something that it hasn't had before, and it's something you see around the league, like let's say a Mike Tomlin or a John Harbaugh, where it's somebody that's going to cater his team to what they need. Look, this is the one thing that upsets me about the NFL trying to copy Bill Belichick, right? Everybody tries to copy Bill Belichick in the wrong ways, where they want to be, scruffy during and mean during the press conferences, or being, sneaky with the injury list. But really what Bill Belichick does is that he caters his team to what works. If in 1 week he needs to play a 5-4, a 4-3, a 3-4, one safety only, it doesn't matter. That's what he's going to do. If he needs to rush the ball 26 times, 37 times, 154 passes, it doesn't matter. That's what Bill Belichick is going to do. I am sick and tired of getting
comparison,
guys.
though.
No, but
this is Bill Belichick.
But this is what I'm saying.
He has control of his personnel, whereas other coaches don't.
But Paulie,
have
that's what this team did. But Paulie, this quarterback was drafted because that's who Matt Nagy wanted. So how can Matt Nagy get a guy that he wants and then not cater his offense to the guy he wanted? Why is he so stubborn? I agree with you. You're not going to find the next Bill Belichick. You need a guy who's going to be able to adjust his game plan, and the Bears don't have that. The successful teams do. The Bears don't have that right now.
Maybe what they need is to bring in the Ohio State coach who used Fields properly. I mean, he's scrambling for his life instead of having a planned running play. I haven't seen a planned running play of you. Not once. He's scrambling for his life all the time.
It makes you wonder if Josh McDaniels actually could get another shot at head coaching again, and if that's the guy that the Bears should be looking at.
I mean, it's very interesting, and we'll see when the season's over who's got
Ryan
a job
Day
still.
Is the coach? I guess you remembered his name, yeah.
And who's available.
And speaking of coaches, though, I wanted to bring up one of the funniest parts of today's game is that the Bears got out-coached by Richard Sherman, who was the fill-in cornerbacks coach today for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Hey, that's a Stanford-educated Super Bowl champion, sir, okay? No, it's true, though. It's a good point.
Sherman parlays that into a career in coaching. I'm not trying to take anything away from him, but I mean, you look at a guy that's kind of filling in for his team, stepping up, who obviously is capable of doing that, but that's one advantage that maybe you could have taken advantage of today and just completely didn't.
And also, two of Brady's biggest weapons, Gronk and Brown, were both out today, and it's like, and they still put up 38 points. Like this, you took away his biggest weapons, and he's like, okay, cool. I'm gonna go use Mike Evans. I'm gonna use Goodwin. It's like,
Paulie,
again, Tom Brady is the GOAT. We cannot argue that. But when you take away his weapons and he's still, firing all 8 cylinders, it's like, this is where the problems are.
It's exactly right. And I think it's funny because, Paul being the Raiders fan, our local Raiders fan here, they've gone through all the turmoil and they're putting up points still. They didn't have Darren Waller. They still pull up points. Guys, when do these Bears, under this regime, when do they put up 21, 24 points? When are we getting to class 200? When are we going to have this upgrade? Like, enough. We've seen enough. Look, I get it. The only thing worse than having a bad head coach for your young quarterback is getting him another bad head coach. I get it. It's a slippery slope. But if you know this is not the dude, if you know that everything around it is wrong, you have to make a decision. Otherwise, what are we doing here? You're sitting in molasses and hoping that your fan base kind of forgets and looks over it and is just excited about the new toy. But you're going to damage this kid. And to be fair,
all you're going to have is laser taking over for the rest of the year. You fire Nagy now. I don't know.
And what has changed about that, right? Like, has the play calling changed? Look, even in this Tampa Bay game, we saw at points Tampa Bay have 2 tight ends out there, 3 tight ends out there. They're going to rush the ball. And we saw the Bears people have some success running the ball. Now, it hurts when your game plan changes because you've been blown out the doors the first 5 minutes in the game. But the Bears, you're 100% Marver. They don't do anything to placate. And you don't see anything special over the last 2-3 weeks since the offensive change, which makes me think, did the offensive play calling really change?
No, I've been saying this for weeks. It doesn't matter who it is. They're still using Matt Nagy's playbook. It doesn't matter. It's like if I give you a PlayStation 2 and say, here, play these PS4 games, and I can't play them. It's like, cool, here's a PS3. Yeah. It still isn't going to change anything.
He was quite clear, Nagy. He says, everything goes through me. He said that's what he said. Yep.
And I don't think it doesn't get any better though. And I don't know if it's something that you could take solace for, or if it's something that you just got to keep your eye on. It's the rookie quarterbacks haven't played well. And I think a lot of it too is just the NFL is just such a wonky league, and there's so much parity across the league. Like, who is really great? I mean, you would have said Kansas City, but we all know right now how much they're struggling. Is it a Cincinnati Bengals team? But this, we saw what the Bears just did. This is what's crazy about it. So I guess what's more frustrating is I have not seen a consistent game plan. I have not seen a consistent route for this Bears team. I don't need you to win every game. I know you're not beating the Packers in this year. I know you're not beating Tampa Bay this season. But you can't come out back-to-back weeks and looking like this. Mark Trestman got fired after 2 bad weeks against New England and Green Bay, against Brady and Aaron Rodgers. Like, yeah, they are on the clock. I think
he also lost the locker room about 5 weeks into his last season, though. And I don't know how the players feel about Matt Nagy, if he's lost the locker room or not. I mean, then that was a different team. It was Brandon Marshall and Jay Cutler were pretty much in charge of that Trestman team. And Trestman just seemed like there was just a giant malaise in that locker room. Right. Nagy strikes me as a little bit more of a type A personality compared to Mark Trestman. But at the same time, I think Nagy's not really shouldering the blame like he should for all of this. And I really do think his days are numbered. And I think the Bears organization doesn't strike me as the organization that would fire a coach midseason. I
agree.
But all of this is lining up to look like a midseason firing.
Yeah, especially if you want to keep the fan base. Because I don't know any fans that are happy or want to keep Matt Nagy around. I really don't. I go on social media after this game, and it's all hashtag fire everyone, hashtag fire Nagy. It's like, this is clearly something that we need to talk about. And especially if the Bears move to Arlington Heights, and, Chicago wants to bring in a second team, it's like you could have some real competition.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's dangerous. I think it's really dangerous, this game the Bears are playing right now, because there's so many bad things that can happen with where they're at right now. You can mess up the development of this quarterback. And if you decide to fire everybody in charge, you can become what some of these other organizations like Jacksonville, Cleveland, so on and so forth, where there's no stability in your franchise. But there isn't stability in this franchise already. The Bears are a laughingstock, and they get mocked every single time they're on national TV. And there's a lot of nice pieces to this team. For the last few weeks, we've been talking about how good the front seven has been. But when you're not able to play, or if you're having to keep some of the greatest quarterbacks of all time in check, you need your offense to be able to give you a little bit of break. And Matt Nagy has not done that. And I kind of want to know, let us know over on Twitter at Sports Cubicle TV. Do you think the Bears should move on from Matt Nagy, from Ryan Pace, from both of them, from neither of them? And is it good for the organization to make a move like that mid-season? And I don't know, what do you guys think? We see it around the NFL a lot. Is it good for this? We know that they don't fire coaches in the middle of a season, but do you want to start going down that road of firing regimes early on? I don't even think it's early on for Ryan Pace, but to just kind of move on when you have a rookie quarterback?
Well, for the rest of the season, nothing much would change, because they would have some internal person be the coach, like I said before. So I don't know what they would accomplish personally. I would prefer that happened in off season, but this may be an exception. I don't expect it to happen personally.
Just looking at wild card spots for this season, they're still kind of in the hunt, just because of it's 4 divisions where the first place teams are kind of running away with it in all 4 divisions. But at the same time, it's a rough schedule coming up. You host San Francisco, could be a winnable game, but San Francisco is tough. But then you got to go on the road to Pittsburgh, and then you've got Baltimore coming in. Could go either way. I mean, the good teams can go 3-0 in those games, but a team that we just saw today could easily go 0-3. Yep. And then what if they embarrass themselves on Thanksgiving in Detroit by an emboldened Lions team that wants to win that Thanksgiving game on national television?
Yeah, the Lions team that has not won a single game this year, the team that's keeping you from being in last place in your division.
But they've been playing tough.
What if that is the one win that the Lions get all season?
It could be.
Thanksgiving Day.
Then that is when you need. That's when something needs to change.
And that would be the firing. Exactly.
That's exactly. My thing is, I want Matt Nagy to be fired on a road game, so he has to ride the bus back with the team. I want, I think the Panthers did a few years ago. It's like, I want it to be that awkward. I'm like, you're done. You have been a disgrace. I don't know why you still, unless you have naked pictures of Virginia McCaskey or something, I don't know why you still have a job.
I envision a planes, trains, and automobiles situation where
it's quite an image, by the way.
Yes, and Nagy's dragging his case back from Detroit, trying to make it back to Chicago.
That will be a nightmare of a Thanksgiving afternoon if you go to Ford Field. Because here's the thing, man, Campbell's got those Lions playing tough, and they play tough against the Bears. I think there's a good chance that Detroit not only could win that game, I think they should be the favorites in that game.
Yeah, I mean it's rough, guys. I don't know. I mean, we're overreacting to one game possibly because Tampa Bay is the defending champions.
Right.
Tom Brady is the first quarterback to ever throw 600 touchdowns and was able to break that record today. You can't say that it was a victory for the Bears in the second half, holding Tampa to only 3 points because they were just dogging it by that point in time. But it was a disaster. We've already been talking about it for weeks on end. I think there was high hopes for the Bears this year. I don't think Justin Fields has grown at all this year. If growth is nonlinear, gosh, I can't point to the moments where he has grown as a player this year. And you look at the last victory, because I wasn't with you guys to talk about it. They won against a Raiders team that was facing turmoil. Like, I think if that game was played under different circumstances, that might have been a loss for the Bears instead of what the outcome we saw.
Exactly. And I want to bring this up as I've been saying this for years. The Bears cannot develop a quarterback. Let's look at all the young quarterbacks they've taken. I think Rex Grossman could have been an MVP in any other team. I think Cade McCown could have probably been better in another team. I think Mitch Trubisky, if he was drafted with some I almost swore another word I was going to say there. I think if he was sent to another team, he could have been a much better quarterback. And they have been let's take a look at every quarterback. I said, take Phillip Rivers, take Andy Dalton, take someone who has experience, get someone who knows what they're doing, and they can't even do that right. They cannot develop a quarterback. So when they drafted Justin Fields, I kind of sat where we all cheered. I'm like, I've seen this show before. I've seen this show before. I know where this is going to go.
Where it gets a little frustrating, and it's 100% right, is seeing the trends. And I think Paulie bringing up the Raiders game, it's one of those where if you want to look for the good, they beat a team that was in turmoil, that is probably better than them, and they went to their home stadium. They beat them. They did good things, and they did what they were supposed to do. That's what an NFL team is supposed to do. Same thing against that Cincinnati team. Or when you're going against Green Bay. Look, at the Green Bay was a bad loss, but there were points in it where you're like, okay, I'm seeing some maturation. But I think it's really interesting, Paul, bringing up the development of Justin Fields, because that's been the hardest thing to really kind of put a grasp on it, because the entire season has been, what's the development like? But because this team dragged its feet for so long to get us to Justin Fields starting and then throwing him to the Wolves like they did, having them unprepared, and then kind of the nightmare schedule that they've had, it's been tough to really put it all together. So I 100%, it's an incomplete right now. A lot of good, not so good, but what we've been saying this entire time here on the Sports Cubicle has been, they are interesting. The team is bad, but they have an interesting quarterback, and they have a lot of rumbling and grumbling going on underneath the surface. So I'm with Paul. That's gonna be the focal point the next few weeks. Not even the wins and losses, but where is the growth process with Justin Fields?
It's all very true. We're going to be looking forward to it. But, Paul, tell us what's happening in the rest of the NFL right now.
Well, I'll give you a score update right now, and this update is going to be brought to you by Riot Fest Presents. This year, Riot Fest is going all year long, and WCPT wants to send you. Make sure to check into the WCPT Club to see who's playing and enter to win. Next upcoming show is Alex G at the Metro on November 20th. You can still purchase tickets at metrochicago.com/event. Let's look at the scoreboard. As you know, the Bears fell today in embarrassing fashion in Tampa by a score of 38-3. On Thursday night, the Browns were able to pick up a victory against the Denver Broncos by a score of 17-14. Titans with the big upset today at home, 27-3 over the Kansas City Chiefs, and perhaps that might not be an upset anymore based on the way Chiefs have been playing. Packers get the victory today at Lambeau, 24-10 over the Washington football team. Cincinnati Bengals on the road against Baltimore, 41-17, a big division win there for the Bengals. Giants picking up a victory at home, 25-3 over the Carolina Panthers. Atlanta Falcons, 30-28 at Miami. New England Patriots throw up a 54 spot against the New York Jets, 54-13, the final in that one in Foxborough. Las Vegas Raiders, 33-22 against the Philadelphia Eagles. The Rams with a victory at home today against the Detroit Lions, 28-19. Arizona Cardinals at home, 31-5 over Houston. Tonight's game has the Colts at the Niners, and tomorrow night, Saints at Seahawks for Monday Night Football.
We're going to get this bad Bears to aftertaste out of our mouth. We're going to go to breaks. Make sure you stay clocked in. When we come back, we're going to talk about the only Chicago team that seems to be winning right now, the Chicago Bulls. And Mercado, I think you got a friend showing by?
Absolutely. Tony Gill from NBC Sports Chicago, the sports adjacent podcast. He covers the Bulls like a blanket. It's going to be a fun time.
So make sure you guys stay clocked in, and we'll be right back.